In observing people and society, we can see how money above everything else holds power and control over the majority of our lives and activities. We do not fully understand our relationship to it, nor give it fair attention to be able to reason why we put so much emphasis on money and material wealth in our daily lives. We simply go along with the consumerist ideas and values that we never really question for ourselves and end up spending a lifetime on the hamster wheel, feeling exhausted, empty and meaningless, but with a house stuffed full of stuff. If you haven't yet asked yourself, what's it all for, then this presentation may well serve that purpose. I'm using here a first reference to the biblical source regarding money. It describes a scene set in a temple where the money changers or lenders were berated and disrupted by a rather fiery Jesus character who was vehemently opposed to their practices and their use of the sacred temple for such a purpose. It is one of the few matters which depict a strong emotional response from the man we called Jesus, who was credited to be of an exceptionally high consciousness here on the earth plane. Whether a truth or fiction, it might be a rather obvious clue as to how damning those practices might become to those whom worship money. It is known and agreed scientifically that everything in its most fundamental form is simply energy, and that energy cannot dissipate, it merely changes state. So, energy is characteristically infinite and transfers from one form to another. If we strip the concept of money right back and look dispassionately, it's easy to see that it is nothing more than paper. But it is paper which we have ascribed value to conceptually, in that we all agree for it to represent something of value. Originally this would have been gold or other rare material, something prized in days gone by, but lately and gradually it seems that it has quietly come to represent very little or nothing. Money used to be a representation of gold, which is where the value was perceived to be, but that is not necessarily true in modern times. We are operating off a fiat currency, which is not backed by anything of value, except where we acknowledge that our own energy is what money is backed by. We may exchange our energy, our value, with each other in a convenient way by our agreement to it. Potential energy is a scientific term for stored energy states. Money is also a way for us to store energy or have the potential to convert it to some other energy state at a convenient time in the future. Research promissory notes and bills of exchange if you haven't already. While we continue to have the belief that the gold is where the value is, we're losing sight or losing our own power, that it's our own energy that is of value. It's how we apply ourselves, it's what we do and what we share with each other which has the real value to humanity. There's been much talk about a financial reset and, in a sense, undermining the dollar and building a new gold-backed currency. I think that might be centered in China or one of the Asian countries. They've been hoarding gold for a very long time, and I think this is why the new superpower is meant to be China. Whilst it probably is in our interest as humans to take down the major control system that has held power and control over our lives for way too long, the last thing we need is to replace the old order with a new order by consent, which simply installs a new world order in exactly the same mould. Same mould, different country. Everything is energy. If a craftsman has breakfast and then goes to work, he takes on stored energy in the form of fat and sugars in the food. His body converts the fat and the sugars into usable energy within his body, which allows him to move and work all day. His body expels heat as he toils, and he sweats to cool himself down, so his body uses his available energy supply to keep an even body temperature while he works. Meanwhile, he has brought into the material world something of value by expending his focused energy, using his own hands and skills for which he has spent much time and energy practicing and perfecting to be able to create something of value. That physical object becomes the potential, stored energy, until he can find a buyer for his work, at which point he exchanges that thing for either money, potential energy, or services, live energy investments. The money which the market trader or buyer had came from expending his energy selling his wares at the local market. Afterward, they both go to the market to buy food and enjoy a tasty, nutritious meal which the restaurateur spent his day crafting before going home to sleep and regenerate, to be able to go back to work the following day. Consciousness as energy. It is not only what you do or the biological functions of your body that expend energy every day. What you think in every moment is also an expenditure of energy and an energy transfer from the bodily energy supply of fat and sugars, converting into electrical energy within your nerves and synapses, for example. But if energy never dissipates and only changes form, where does it go once it has become a thought? Thoughts are energy, and we have an uncountable number of thoughts every day. What you think about and focus your attention on directly affects your experiences in your day-to-day life. This is because your thoughts interact with the wider field of energy surrounding us, which we are all intimately connected to on the quantum conscious level. Your thought energy, focus and emotional state interacts with the field of conscious energy at a higher dimensional level, which causes the energy to transform or collect into matter, material, or particle, particular form, and so draws the thoughts, ideas and visions you put out there back to you into a physical, material form. Energy manipulation. So with this insight about how anatomy works, on an energetic level, you can connect the dots and look at the history of mankind to evaluate just how much our energy has been used, manipulated, directed, harvested and abused for many different reasons or agendas, which collectively really amounts to humanity becoming a slave race, an energy source, a battery cell of stored energy, or a battery animal such as a chicken in its cage, cell, prison. When we see energy as the currency with value, the bigger picture begins to form. Linguistic and other clues are undeniable once you begin to see them. Incidentally, the book by Arthur C. Clarke, Childhood's End, uses the phrase, "Science is the new religion." In other words, it is the new method for controlling the consciousness. I make the point of the fact that regular pop science show on BBC Radio 4, available on podcast and called The Infinite Monkey Cage. To my mind, its title implies the condition of humanity remaining in bondage eternally within the material earth-bound prison because the human animals, void of higher spiritual perspectives, have not expanded their consciousness beyond the material perceptions lauded and propagated by pop scientists on mainstream media. Even worse, the spiritual or mystical perspectives are ridiculed as if to shore up their own beliefs about the way the natural world works. Ridicule is an age-old tool of control. Establishment structures and institutions such as the party political systems has in effect stood in the way of the consciousness manifesting its true desires for freedom and healthful lives, since it prescribes petty possibilities which are well beneath our true capacity for creating the reality we deserve. The system manipulates and deceives the people into believing in shortage, lack and division from each other and the infinite consciousness field or eternal energy source. It teaches through subversive means to hate and fear, a lower conscious behaviour, anything which is different, rather than to love and embrace each other unconditionally, our higher consciousness. Technology and medicinal remedies which are beneficial to humanity have been hijacked and hidden from us to be able to direct us towards a system of control and domination by a few so-called elite individuals. Illness is merely managed for profit and rarely cured. This is primarily achieved because we continue to tacitly or explicitly consent to a governmental system of illusory democracy, which has long ago been usurped by a shadow government or other systems and is now considered de facto, self-acknowledged as illegitimate, except that everyone goes along with it. You are slowly but surely building your own cage of entrapment and creating your inevitable demise into an inescapable slavery. One can't travel far on his grand tour around the internet alternative news community, diligently researching without stumbling upon end-of-the-world scenarios of being taken over by dead people or vampires who are feeding off your own healthy flesh. Well, you may be surprised to hear me say that I am a cautious, rational individual, and when I began on my voyage of discovery about the world and all that I had been oblivious to previously, I had taken some steps to provide for myself in a doomsday scenario. The funny thing is, having climbed a mountain to escape, looking back from a higher perspective as I now do, having opened my mind and my heart, the zombie was in fact me and everyone else like me who was or is still unaware of their true nature. I was the dead corporate entity, a legal name blindly consenting to my own and others' demise. The zombie is an archetypal expression of our sleepful unawareness. It is a reflection of us to show us our unawareness about who we are. If we can't fully wake up and take back control of ourselves, our higher faculties, we are on course for oblivion.